Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Bella Nabila with my SID number 332301112. So today I would like to presenting my presentation for my project 2 and final exam for subject Sociolinguistic. Without any further ado, I will share screen about my presentation. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I would like to start with part one first. I already choose two topics. There are gender exclusive speech and stereotypes. Okay. Introduction to Sociolinguistic. Sociolinguistic is the study of the relationship between language and society. It explains how people use language differently depending on social context. Language variation is influenced by culture, region, education, age, and social status. Two important concepts in sociolinguistics are diglossa and dialect. Language is a social phenomenon. Next, what is a gender exclusive speech? Gender exclusive speech refers to language that explicitly or implicitly refers to only one gender, while excluding or minimizing the existence of another gender. In sociolinguistics, this phenomenon often appears when masculine forms, such as he, him, chairman, or mankind, are used to represent all people, even though they include women and individuals of other genders' identities. Such language may unintentionally refers the idea that men are the default members of society. Characteristic of gender exclusive speech has several characteristics, like use masculine words as the generic form, exclude or minimize women's visibility, reflects an equal gender representation, reinforce traditional gender roles, influence how people perceive social identity. For example, the wrong. Every student must bring his laptop. But the truth is, every student must bring their laptop. Because in the class, that's not men only, but there are women too. So, lebih tepatnya using their. Next, why is it important? Gender exclusive speech is important because language influences how people think and interact. According to sociolinguistics, language not only reflects society, but also shapes social reality. When one gender is consistently present as the norm, an equal power relation become more normalized. Using gender inclusive language promotes equality, diversity, and respect in education, workplace, and public communication. Why is it important again? Language doesn't simply describe reality, but it also creates social reality, from language into identity, into power, and then representation, and then equality. Therefore, gender exclusive language contributes to unequal representation in education, media, and workplace. Theoretical framework. I.S. James Holmes' book An Introduction to Sociolinguistics, 4th edition. Holmes explained that language reflects society, identity, and power relationship. Gender differences in language are influenced by cultural expectation rather than biological differences. Language choice can maintain or challenge the gender inequality. This theory helps explain why gender exclusive speech or expression continue to exist in many situations. For supporting theory, I used theory from Deborah Cameron. They said The theory state about language isn't simply a reflection of gender differences. Instead, people construct gender identities through repeated linguistic practices. Repeated expression eventually become accepted social norms. For authentic example one, I use this uh, article sourced by British Council. Article is teacher. What is gender language? The author is Gemma Pryor. Publication date on 1 March 2017 and platform British Council. The example in this article is a doctor should know how to communicate with his patient. If it's the link, this sentence is frequently used to explain gender language, right? Although instead to include all doctor, it used the masculine pronoun his, which implicitly position men as the default. But in the reality, there are so many doctor, but should that not only men, but women too. Next, analysis of example number one. Sociolinguistic phenomenon is generic masculine pronoun. Male becomes the default professional. Women become less visible and gender exclusive speech. The critical analysis for the example number one is according to Holmes 2013, language reflects power relation. The pronoun his encourage readers to imagine a male doctor. This affects mental representation even though women also belong to the profession. The issue is not grammar alone. Research shows that the reader often imagine a male professional when generic masculine pronouns are used. Next. Inclusive alternative from the article number one is the original. A doctor should know how to communicate with his patient. The inclusive, the right one, is the doctor should know how to communicate with their patient. The advantage, inclusive, gender neutral, widely accepted in modern English, represent all professionals equally. Today, singular they is widely accepted in academic and professional writing. So, because it avoids excluding any gender. Next. For the authentic example number one, I use this article sourced by ABC Education. The title of this article is What is Gender Neutral Language and Why is it Important? The publication that on 7 March 2019. Here's the link and the example and recommended alternatives like chairman into chairperson, fireman into firefighter, and policeman to police officer. Unlike the first example, this article discusses gender-specific occupational titles rather than pronouns. Analysis of example number two, the social phenomenon. Occupational title contains masculine marker, professional associated with men, woman less represented, gender exclusive language. The critical analysis is, according to Hobbes again, language influences occupational identity. Using chairman suggests a leadership is naturally associated with men. Gender neutral alternative encourage equal participation. This example demonstrates how vocabulary choices shape social expectation about who belong in certain professions. Next, for the journal, article number one, I use this by Stezeni for Manowitz and Moser, 2019. Can gender fair language reduce gender stereotyping and discrimination? Finding from this article is inclusive language increases women's visibility, gender fair language reduces stereotypes, language influences social cognition. This study provides empirical evidence that inclusive language affects how people mentally represent occupation and gender roles. Here's the link. And for journal number 2, I use from Gustav von Sanden et al. 2015, introducing a gender-neutral pronoun in a natural gender language. Findings from this article: natural pronouns reduce implicit bias, inclusive language change attitudes, and language reform support social equality. This research demonstrates that even small linguistic change can influence long-term social attitudes and that become. Next, comparison between example number 1 and example number 2. Pronoun, occupational title, grammar, vocabulary, generic masculine, gender marked noun, implicit exclusion, explicit gender marking. The similarities of example number 1 and number 2 is both position meant as the social norm, and the difference is one operates through grammar and the other through vocabulary. Although different linguistic mechanisms are used, both examples contribute to the same sociolinguistic outcome, like unequal representation. Critical discussion. Gender exclusive speech influence in education, employment, government, advertising, media, and workplace communication. The issue is not intention, but the issue is the representation. Most speakers do not intentionally discriminate. However, sociolinguistics focuses on the effects on language rather than speaker intonation. Intention. Sociolinguistic implication. Repeated gender exclusive language to mental representation, the social belief in intentional practices, and gender inequality. Inclusive language, greater participation, and greater equality. Language contributes to long-term social change by influencing how society views gender roles, is it? The conclusion from gender exclusive speech is gender exclusive speech demonstrates that language reflects and reproduces social values. Holman's theory explains that language is closely connected with identity and the power. But authentic examples show that masculine linguistic forms continue to influence social representation. Inclusive language is therefore an important step toward equality. And my final statement is, in conclusion, language is never neutral. Small linguistic choices influence how people perceive gender, authority, and opportunity. Next, we move that is a reference for gender exclusive speech that I already use, and we move into the topic number 2 that I'll choose is stereotypes. Learning objective for stereotypes is after this presentation, the audience will be able to define stereotypes in sociolinguistics, identify the characteristic of stereotypes, explain the relationship between language and stereotypes, analyze authentic media example, apply sociolinguistic theories to real cases, evaluate the impact of stereotypes on society. This objective demonstrates that the presentation focuses on critical analysis rather than simple description. What are stereotypes? A stereotype is generalized belief or assumption about member of particular social group. In sociolinguistics, stereotypes are communicated through language that assign the fixed characteristics to individual based on his gender, ethnicity, age, occupation, nationality, and social class. Although stereotypes sometimes appear positive, they offer simply reality and often reinforce prejudice. Stereotypes simplify complex individuals into fixed categories. For example, saying that women are naturally caring or other people cannot use technology ignores individual differences and may influence how society treats those groups. The characteristic of stereotypes generally is generalize individuals into group, ignore personal diversity, are reinforced through repeated language use, influence expectation and judgments, and may be positive or negative, but still create bias. Even positive stereotypes can be harmful because they are create expectation that people should behave in certain ways simply because they belong to a particular group. Why are stereotypes important in sociolinguistics? Because from language, creates a social identity into shared perception and then reinforce stereotypes and then influence discrimination and inclusion. Sociolinguistics examines how repeated linguistic patterns contribute to social inequality. Language doesn't merely reflect stereotypes, it also helps construct them by repeatedly presenting certain groups in similar ways. Next, theoretical framework I also use from James Holmes, An Introduction to Sociolinguistics, 4th edition. Holmes argued that language reflects social values, construct identities, reproduce power relation, and repeated linguistic practice maintains stereotypes. Holmes explained that stereotypes become normalized because they are rapidly reproduced through everyday communication, and supporting theory, as Deborah Cameron again, language actively construct gender and social identities. Repeated exploitation create common sense, belief that may actually be social constructor rather than naturally true. According to Cameron, stereotypes survive because people continue repeating the same linguistic pattern across their generation. For authentic example number one, I use this article sourced by The Guardian. The title is Facebook Shirley Shanberg Attacks Gender Stereotypes at Work. Publication on 25 January 2013. Original quote from this article is, as a woman becomes more successful, she is less like, and as a man becomes more successful, is more like. Sociolinguistic phenomenon. This quotation illustrates gender stereotypes in professional settings. Women and men displaying the same leadership behavior are evaluated differently. Usually, this quotation comes from discussions surrounding workplace leadership and highlights how stereotypes shapes evaluates of successful women compared with successful men. Analysis of example number one for socialist linguistic phenomenon. Leadership is men, competent is woman, aggressive or unlikable is gender stereotypes. The critical analysis is according to Holmes. Language reflects existing social values. The quotation demonstrates that success is socially interpreted through gendered expectation rather than objective performance. Language reinforces an equal evolution of men and women. Although men and women similar leadership roles, stereotypical language causes audience to evaluate them differently. Critical interpretation, social meanings is leadership is associated with masculinity. Women experience higher social expectation. Success is evaluated differently based on gender. Workplace communication reproduces inequality. The issue isn't women's leadership ability, but society linguistic and cultural expectation regarding leadership. Authentic example number two, I used from World Bank. The feature is gendered language may play a role in limiting women's opportunities. Publication on 24 January 2019. The main statement is the World Bank explained that gendered language is associated with stronger traditional gender norms and lower participation of women education and the labor market. Sociolinguistic phenomenon, language influences how society perceives women's abilities and opportunities. Unlike the first example, this sources focuses on institutional and societal effects rather than interpersonal communication. Analysis of example number two, the sociolinguistic phenomenon, is language gender norms into social expectation, employment opportunities, and institutional inequality. The critical analysis holds argues that language reflects and reproduces power. The World Bank article demonstrates that linguistic structure influence educational achievement, career opportunities, and participation in leadership. This example shows that language affects society at a structural level, not only individual conversation. Journal article 1 by Sensitive Formants, like before, like inclusive language increase women's visibility, like gender fair language reduce stereotypes, language influence social cognition. The finding support both example because replacing stereotypical expression with inclusive language improve equal representation. Here's the link. This study confirmed that changing language can influence how people think about social group. Journal article number two I got from Connie AM 2018 comparing prescriptive and descriptive gender stereotypes about children, adults, and the elderly. Frontiers in Physiology 9 article. Repeated stereotypes shape expectation, influence education, influence career, and then affects life opportunities. The study supports the idea that stereotypes become powerful because they are continuously repeated through language. Here's the link. And this research shows that stereotypes affect people, ambition, and opportunities from an early age. The comparison from example number one and number two, and the aspect like source, focus, type, and impact. The Guardian and World Bank workplace leadership and social institution. The type is gender stereotype and gender language. The impact is individual evaluation and structural inequality. The similarity from example number one and number two both demonstrate gender stereotypes, both influence opportunities, and both reinforce an equal power relation. The differences, example number one focuses on interpersonal evaluation, and example number two focuses on institutional consequence. Although the contexts differ, both examples demonstrate how language contributes to maintaining gender and equality. Critical discussion stereotypes can affect education, employment, politics, media, family, and healthcare. Language may either reinforce stereotypes or challenge them through inclusive communication. Changing language alone cannot eliminate discrimination, but it is an important first step toward more equitable social interaction. Sociolinguistic implication, repeated stereotypes, antisocial beliefs, intentional practice, discrimination, and equal opportunities. Inclusive language, greater perception, greater inequality. Inclusive language helps challenge stereotypes and promotes a society that evaluates individuals based on their abilities rather than presupposing preconceived assumption. The conclusion from stereotypes is stereotypes are social socially construct belief maintained through repeated language use. Home theory demonstrates that language reflects and reproduces social values and power relations. The example from The Guardian and World Bank show that stereotypes influence workplace communication, institutional practices, and social opportunities. Therefore, adopting inclusive language is an important strategy for reducing prejudice and promoting inequality. Final statement from me is to conclude stereotypes are not fixed truths. They are social constructions that can be challenged by changing how we use language and how we communicate with others. The references for stereotypes. Okay. Okay, we go to part two about case study. Case study number one about gender exclusive speech. This a technology company is recruiting new employee. During an online meeting, the manager repeatedly says, every employee must submit his report before Friday. A good programmer should improve his coding skills regularly. Several female employees feel that the language excludes women and reinforces male-centered assumption. 1. What is gender exclusive speech? Gender exclusive speech is language that explicitly or implicitly favors one gender while excluding or reducing the visibility of others. In English, this often occurs when masculine pronouns, for example, like he or his or gender specific occupational terms, are used to refer to all people. According to Holmes, language reflects social structures and can reinforce an equal gender representation. Number two, why can the manager language can be considered gender exclusive? The manager repeatedly used the masculine pronoun his and he to refer to all employees and programmers. Although this expression may have been intended as generic references, they position men as the default members of the workplace. From a sociolinguistic perspective, this reinforces the idea that professional competence is associated with masculinity. Female employees may feel less represented because the language does not explicitly acknowledge their presences. Number three, what social and linguistic effects may result from such language? The social effects and linguistic effects. The social effects, female employees may feel excluded or undervalued. It reinforces traditional gender stereotypes. It creates an equal representation in the workplace. It may reduce employees' sense of belonging. For linguistic effects, masculine pronouns become normalized as universal universe references. Male identity becomes the linguistic default. Inclusive alternatives are discouraged. Number four, what alternative language form could be used? Instead of every employee must submit its report, they can use every employee must submit their report. Instead of a good programmer should improve his coding skill, they can use a good programmer should improve their coding skills. Using the singular they is now widely accepted in professional academic English because it includes all gender. Number five, analysis using theory and journal article. The theory I use Holmes argues that language reflects social identity, and power relation. The repeated of masculine pronouns position men as the linguistic norm, reinforcing an equal gender representation. Journal number two, for Sensing for Manowitz and Moser found that gender-fair language reduces stereotyping and increases women's visibility in professional contexts. This supports replacing generic masculine pronouns with exclusive alternatives. For journal number two, I. Gustav von Sander et al. Demonstrate that introducing gender-neutral pronouns positively influence attitude toward gender and equality. Their findings support the use of singular they in workplace communication. The interpretation, the managerial language illustrates how everyday linguistic choices shape social perception, although the intention may not have been discriminatory. The repeated use of masculine language reinforces an equal representation. Inclusive language promotes fairness, diversity, and more welcoming professional environment. Case study number 2 is about density. Lecture A. Language is a system of communication, but Lecture B says that language functions as a dynamic symbolic system facilitating the transmission and negotiating of meaning across diverse socio-cultural contexts. Students report that Lecture B's expression is more difficult to understand. What is linguistic density? Linguistic density refers to an amount of information packed into a sentence or discourse. Dense language contains many concepts, technical terms, or abstract ideas within a limited amount of text. From Halliday explains that this language is common in academic discourse because it conveys complex information efficiently. Number 2, how does density affect communication and comprehension? Higher linguistic density encourages cognitive demands on readers or listeners. Although dense language is more precise and it can be reduced comprehension, especially for learners or non-specialists. Low density language is easier to process because information is presented in simpler and more direct way. Number 3, which lecture use higher linguistic density? Lecture B use higher linguistic density because more technical vocabulary, longer noun phrases, more abstract concept, and more information contained within one sentence. Number 4, what are the advantage and disadvantage of dense language? The advantage is precise and accurate, suitable for academic writing, and efficiently communicates complex ideas. And disadvantage is difficult for beginners, increased cognitive loads, and reduced accessibility. Analysis using theory and journal article I use from Haldai, Fang, and Skeperger, and for interpretation, lecture B explains is linguistic richer but cognitively more demanding. The sentence is appropriate in academic context where precision is valued, but lecture A simpler explanation may be more effective for introductory teaching. The case study number 3 about complexity, version A. Student must submit the form by Friday, but version B. Student will have completed the registration process and fulfilled all administrative requirements are required to submit the form before the specific deadline. Students find version B more difficult to understand. What is linguistic complexity? Complexity refers to a structural sophistication of language that includes sentence length, grammatical embeddings, subordinate clauses, and syntactic organization. Complex language requires greater processing effort. Number 2, which version demonstrates greater complexity? Version B is more demonstrate greater complexity because it includes a relative clause, multiple condition, longer sentence structure, more formal vocabulary. Number 3, how can syntactic complexity affect understanding? Complex syntax increase processing time and working memory demands. Reader must interpret several pieces of information before understanding the main stage. Simpler sentence improve clarity, especially in public communication. Number 4, when is complex language Appropriate, complex language is appropriate in academic writing, legal documents, scientific reports, government regulation. And simple language is preferable for public announcement and instructions. Analysis using theory and journal article I use from Haldane, Booth and Hausen and Ortega, and the interpretation version B provides more detailed information but at the expense of reliability in contexts where quick understanding is essential, such as university announcement. Version A is more effective because it communicates the key message clearly and effectively. Case study number 4 about style. A student sends the following message to a professor. Hi prof, what's up? I need your signature ASAP. Later, the same student writes, Good morning, professor. I would like to request your signature on my academic form. Thank you for your assistance. The professor responds more positively to second message. Language style is refers to the variation in language used depending on the social situation, relationship between speaker and purposes of communication. According to Martin Jones, language style range from frozen, normal, consultative, casual to intimate style. Choosing an appropriate style helps speaker communicate effectively and maintain social harmony. Number 2, how do people message differs stylistically? The first message used a casual style, characteristic by informal greeting like "Hey prof" and slang language like "What's up" and the abbreviation like "ASAP" as soon as possible. This style is appropriate among close friends but not in formal academic setting. The second message uses a formal and polite style. It begins with a respect, respectful greeting like "Good morning, professor." Employs indirect and courteous language. I would like to request and ends with an expression of gratitude. This style reflects for the professor status and aligned with academic communication norms. Number 3, why is the second message more appropriate? The second message more appropriate because it demonstrates politeness, professionalism, and respect to the professor. In an academic context, maintaining appropriate social distance is important. Formal language helps establish a positive relationship between student and lecturers and increase the likelihood of receiving a favorable responses. Number 4, how does style influence interpersonal relationship? Language style influence how speakers are perceived. A, a polite and appropriate style can strengthen interpersonal relationship by conveying respect and consideration. Conversely, an overly casual or impolite style may create misunderstanding, reduce credibility, and damage professional relationship. The theory and journal article I use is Jaws, Brown and Levinson, Politeness Theory, Taguchi, and the interpretation is the student's second message demonstrate greater pragmatic competence because it matched the expectation of academic setting. Appropriate language style enhance communication effectiveness and reflects awareness of social norms. Case study number 5 about context. During a classroom presentation, a student says, This project is realistic. Some students interpret the statement as negative, while others understand it meaning excellent or impressive. What is context in sociolinguistic? Context refers to the social, cultural, and situational factors that influence how language is interpreted, and according to Dale Hymes, communication can only be fully understood by considering the context in which it occurs. including participant setting, purposes, and cultural norms. Number two, why can the same expression have different meaning? The word sick traditionally means ill or unhealthy. However, in contemporary informal English, especially among younger speakers like me, it can also mean excellent, like wow, that's amazing. And the intended meaning depends on the context, the relationship between speakers, and shared cultural knowledge. Number three, what contextual factors influence interpretation? Can influence the age and cultural background of the speaker, the communication settings like classroom, social media, conversation, shared knowledge between participants, tone of voice and facial expression, and current slang usage within a speech community. Number four, how does context affect communication? Context helps listener determine the speaker's intended meaning without sufficient contextual information. The same expression may be misunderstood. Understand context, therefore, reduce ambiguity and improve communication effectiveness. The theory and journal from Delheim's speaking model emphasize that meaning depends on context rather than words alone. Taligamon and Androstopoulos and the different interpretation arise because language is dynamic. The younger student interprets sick as a compliment, while others rely on its traditional meaning. Context therefore determines meaning more than the literal definition. The case study number 6 about register. The doctor, the patient exhibits symptoms of hypertension and requires immediate pharmacological intervention. Later, the doctor tells the patient family, your family members has high blood pressures and need medication soon. What is a register? Register refers to variety of language chosen according to the communicative si- I'm sorry, situation, audience, and purposes. Holiday explains that register varies according to field topic, a tenor, relationship, and mode communication channel. Number two, why does the doctor use different language in different situations? The doctor uses technical medical terminology when communicating with healthcare professionals because precision is required. When speaking to the patient family, the doctor chooses simpler language to ensure understanding. This adaptation reflects audience awareness and effective communication. Number three, what factor influence register choices? Register is influenced by audience knowledge, professional roles, purpose of communication, communication setting, and degree of formality. Number four, how does register affects communication effectiveness? Choosing an appropriate register improves clarity, reduces misunderstanding, and ensures that information is accessible to the intended audience. Inappropriate register may confuse listener or reduce communication efficiency. The theory and journal by Halliday, Bieber and Connard, Hyland, and the interpretation as the doctor language demonstrates effective register selection. Medical terminology ensure precision among professionalism, while simplified explanation improve communication with patients and families. And the last one case study about stereotypes. I already explained for the part in the part one. A company manager states women are naturally better at communication, while men are naturally better at leadership. Several employees disagree and argue that such statement promotes stereotypes rather than reflects individual abilities. Stereotypes are generalized belief expression through language about members of particular social groups. Number two, how can stereotypes can be reflected and reinforced through language? By repeatedly linking particular abilities or behavior with certain groups, statements such as women are naturally caring or men are naturally leaders normalize assumption that may influence hiring, promotion, and social expectation. Number three, what are the potential consequences of stereotypes in professional environment? Gender discrimination and equal promotion opportunities, reduce workplace diversity, biases recruitment decision, lower employee motivation. Number four, how can language can use to reduce stereotypes? Organization can reduce stereotypes by using inclusive and evidence-based language. Instead of making generalization, speakers should focus on individual skills and achievement. Gender-neutral language also promotes equality and inclusion. Theory and journal from home, sensing formal knowledge and Moser, conic, and the interpretation, the manager statement offers simplifies human abilities by attributing them to gender rather than individual competence. Inclusive language encourage fairer evaluation based on skills instead of stereotypes, contributing to a more equitable workplace. Review the power of language choices give us the ability to use our identity as tool, the freedom to use all our voice and express experiences, and to remind ourselves that our language, all of them are valid. The all references I use in the part one for case study. Okay, thank you. That's all for my presentation for my project 2 final exam. Thanks for watching and thank you so much for Miss TV for teaching us in this semester. It's very and no, it's so many new insight from your subject sociolinguistic. Okay, thanks for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.